I've been shown no respect, so I won't show any respect to any of you guys tonight. I'm going to go home. Cheers.
These are 10 moments when professional darts players completely lost control on the biggest stages in the sport, and some of them paid for it in ways that went far beyond a fine or a loss on the board. We are counting down from 10 to 1. December 29th, 2025, Alexandra Palace, London. Luke Littler walked out as world number 1, defending champion and 18 years old, and the crowd had already decided they were backing Rob Cross instead. Cross was a former world champion himself, so the support was not entirely unreasonable, but what followed was. Littler led 3 sets to 1, watched the crowd grow louder as Cross clawed it back to 3 sets to 2. Then closed the match out 4 sets to 2 and turned to face the people who had spent the evening booing him. "Am I bothered?" he shouted toward the stands. "Really, am I bothered? Really not bothered." Standing with a microphone and an entire arena watching, Littler delivered what became one of the most replayed post-match moments in recent darts history. "You guys pay for the tickets and you pay for my prize money, so thank you. Thank you for my money. Thank you for booing me."
Just sum up how you're feeling. It's a bit of a hostile environment out here. What's going through your head, Luke?
I'm not bothered. Really, I'm not bothered. Really not bothered. Can I just say one thing? You guys pay for tickets and you're paying for my prize money, so thank you. Thank you for my money. Thank you for booing me. Thank you. Come on!
Wayne Mardle called the interview just odd, and Glenn Durrant reminded viewers that Littler was 18 years old, as if that explained everything, and perhaps it did. Littler himself told reporters he had no regrets and that it was adrenaline, emotion, and anger all hitting at once. None of that mattered to the result, because Littler went on to win the entire tournament, dropping only 4 sets across the whole championship. The crowd did pay his prize money, and he made absolutely sure they knew it. Wolverhampton, November 18th, 2018, and Gary Anderson was 11 legs ahead of Gerwyn Price in the Grand Slam of darts final, leading 8 legs to 3 and looking every bit like a man about to close out a major title without too much fuss. What happened next was anything but. Anderson won only 2 of the remaining 10 legs, collapsing steadily, while Price celebrated every single point as if each one was a provocation in itself, which, if you asked Anderson, it absolutely was. At one point, Anderson physically pushed Price on the oche, something the darts regulation authority later described as a response to being significantly provoked, and issued only a formal warning for. Wayne Mardle put it plainly at the time, "It got beyond a darts match. It got ridiculous in the end. You shouldn't be touching other players." Price won 16 legs to 13, and the moment that winning dart landed, Anderson was gone from the stage. No ceremony, no handshake, no speech. This entry appears on the list as the 2019 Grand Slam, but the final itself belongs to November 2018, and the confusion comes from the DRA punishment being announced the following January. The match, the collapse, and the confrontation all happened in 2018. After winning the 2018 Grand Slam, Price was handed a fine of £21,500 by the Darts Regulation Authority, the largest behavioural fine in the sport's history at that point, later reduced on appeal to £11,500, alongside a 3-month suspended ban. None of that was the worst of it. People on social media began targeting his daughter Emily, who was around 12 years old at the time, and Price spoke about it publicly. When social media target your family, your daughter, it's not what you're in the game for. That is not a head loss. That is a man being ground down by consequences that went far beyond anything he had done on a dartboard. Price had come from professional rugby, fought his way into professional darts, won his first PDC major, and watched strangers harass his child because of a darts match. Emotional moments did follow, though not at the 2019 World Grand Prix specifically. When he won the World Grand Prix in 2020, his children appeared on the big screen and Price could barely speak. When he became world champion in January 2021, beating Gary Anderson 7 sets to 3, his words were, "I can't even speak, really. It means the world. I'm the most emotional person ever." The 2019 period did not produce one crying moment, it produced years of carrying something heavy. November 12th, 2023, Aldersley Leisure Village, Wolverhampton, and Ricardo Pietreczko was already in a difficult position before he even stepped onto the stage for his second group match at the Grand Slam of Darts. His first group game had gone 5-4 against Damon Heta, a match he lost after missing a dart that would have won it, which meant elimination was already looming when he faced Bo Greaves, the women's world champion, in what turned out to be his Grand Slam debut's defining moment. The Wolverhampton crowd had decided they were there for Greaves, and Pietreczko, the German from Nuremberg whose nickname Pikachu came from a mispronunciation of his own surname at a tournament, was going to receive exactly none of their warmth. As the booing grew louder, Pietreczko began making confrontational gestures back toward the crowd, which, as anyone who has watched a hostile darts audience respond to provocation could have predicted, made everything significantly worse. Every gesture brought more noise, every bit of noise disrupted the next dart, and Greaves averaged 95 to win 5-1. Some people hate me after the Grand Slam, but many people understand me, Pietreczko acknowledged afterward, adding that his reaction was spontaneous and that he carried anxiety about the incident into future events. Greaves, for her part, said she felt a bit for him, noting that the crowd had gotten into his back and that this was simply how it went when you played the women on the big stage. No formal punishment followed, but the lesson arrived with full force regardless. December 22nd, 2024, Alexandra Palace and Joe Cullen had just averaged 98 points, scored 8 maximums, and beaten Wessel Nijman 3-0 in one of the more commanding performances of the early rounds. The bookmakers had listed Nijman as match favourite anyway, and also placed him 7th favourite for the entire tournament, which meant Cullen arrived for this match having absorbed what he described as 100% disrespectful treatment from people who had not watched him closely enough. His on-stage interview with Sky Sports lasted 23 words across 3 questions. Then the press conference began. Colin interrupted the first question, delivered his verdict on the entire situation, stood up and left. The way I have been treated with the media, and I know you guys have no control of the bookies, I've been shown no respect. So I won't be showing any respect to you guys, and I'm going to go home.
I've been shown no respect, so I won't be showing any respect to any of you guys tonight. I'm going to go home. Cheers.
Sky Sports pundit Dan Dawson called it a little bit silly, but also quite funny, and noted that if the anger had produced that kind of performance on the board, perhaps it served a purpose. No formal action followed. Cullen picked up 2 Players' Championship titles in 2025, and at the very next World Championship, he was involved in another controversy, accusing his opponent of cheating through slow play after a second-round exit, posting publicly that regardless of how you describe the behaviour, it was cheating, and that is not darts. Some people carry their grievances lightly. Cullen is not one of them. This was the 2005 to 2006 World Championship at the Circus Tavern in Purfleet, Essex, not Alexandra Palace, which only became the home of the PDC World Championship from 2007 onward. And Adrian Lewis was 20 years old in his first ever World Championship and already through to the quarterfinals after beating Dave Honey, Dennis Priestley and Roland Sholton. His run had produced one of the tournament's most audacious moments, a 180 thrown while Lewis was already turning to face his opponent, the dart still travelling toward the board. The quarterfinal opponent waiting for him was Peter Manley, a player whose reputation for psychological pressure was well established on the circuit. With Lewis preparing to throw in the 5th set, Manley stood behind him muttering and swearing, and Lewis snapped, turning away from the board and walking off the stage entirely, leaving the match unfinished. Referee Russ Bray stepped in, and after a delay, Lewis came back, but the composure that had carried him through 3 rounds was gone, and Manley closed out the match 5-3. Both players received DRA fines, though confirmed amounts were not available in the reporting. Lewis did not let this define him. 2 PDC World Championships followed in 2011 and 2012, which makes the Circus Tavern walkout read as the kind of lesson only a first World Championship, a hostile opponent, and 20-year-old nerves can teach. April 2nd, 2026, the AO Arena in Manchester, and 3 months after dismantling Gian van Veen 7-1 in the World Championship final, Littler found himself 5-all in a Premier League quarter-final against the same man, with 1 leg left to settle it. Van Veen was sitting on 90 and missed double 15, the dart clipping just inside the wire, and as Van Veen turned away in frustration, Littler turned toward the Manchester crowd and celebrated the miss at full volume, gesturing toward the fans and whipping them up until they started booing Van Veen. Words were exchanged across the oche, and Wayne Mardle said on commentary that he could lip-read what Littler had said but would not repeat it on air. What happened next was the part that mattered. Littler missed 3 darts at double 7, the leg he needed to win, the leg he had just made significantly harder to win by disrupting his own concentration along with his opponents, and Van Veen hit double 6 to take the match 6-5. 6-2. Littler also made a crying gesture toward Van Veen during the exchange, a detail Van Veen addressed directly in his post-match interview. "I'm on 90, I missed double 15 on the inside, and then I see him celebrating towards the crowd. I don't think that's normal." He also makes that crying gesture. He's a fantastic darts player, but today he showed he's not a good loser. Littler's handshake was brief and cold, and then he was off the stage quickly, later posting on Instagram with his list of TV titles, a caption wishing Manchester goodnight, and 3 laughing emojis next to a screenshot of Van Veen's quote. Gerwyn Price said he felt for Littler and thought there was nothing wrong with getting emotional. Wayne Mardle's assessment was shorter. He got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. He won't be doing that again. December 17th, 2010, Alexandra Palace and Colin Lloyd, nicknamed Jaws, was a former world #1 who had won the World Grand Prix in 2004 and the World Match Play in 2005, which made his first round opponent an unseeded German qualifier named Andre Welge, a match Lloyd was fully expected to handle without much drama. Lloyd led 2 sets to 0 and then watched Welge win the next 2 sets 3-0 and 3-0, leveling the match entirely. And with the deciding set underway and the pressure mounting, Lloyd threw a dart and then drove his bare fist straight into the dartboard before anyone on stage or in the crowd fully understood what was happening. The sisal and wire opened his knuckles immediately, blood was visible, and the crowd responded with a long loud boo. And this is where it gets interesting. Lloyd composed himself, won the deciding set anyway, and finished with a 116 checkout. He won the match he had briefly made unwatchable. His post-match interview was a mixture of apology and defiance. "I was a little bit unprofessional, but hopefully they'll let me off that one little misdemeanor." He had already told reporters he was showing his true emotions and acknowledged the DRA would respond, which they did. £2,000 in total. 1,000 for striking the board and 1,000 for throwing darts to the floor in a reckless manner at the match's end. The dartboard, for the record, required no surgery. December 15th, 2025, Alexandra Palace and Cameron Menzies was 36 years old, the 26th seed, and facing Charlie Manby, a 20-year-old making his World Championship debut with a world ranking of 166. Menzies led, Manby fought back, and the match reached a 5th and final set, where Menzies missed 4 darts that would have forced a deciding leg, and Manby hit his match-winning dart on the 7th attempt. The moment that dart landed, Menzies drove his fist upward into the underside of the Paddy Power drinks table 3 times, described by witnesses as uppercuts, hard enough to send water bottles scattering and prompt referee Kirk Bevins to rush over. Blood was already coming from Menzies' knuckles when he turned to face the crowd, and he wiped it across his face before walking off stage, hands raised in apology. The emotional context came out in his public statement. His uncle Gary had died recently. He had visited him 4 days before he passed. His father was in hospital during the match itself, and had he beaten Manby, his second match would have fallen on the day of his uncle's funeral. None of that was visible from the crowd's perspective, and the crowd booed anyway, but the physical cost was the part nobody expected. Weeks later, at the Poland Darts Open, Menzies revealed he had lost feeling in his fingers, had been unable to throw for 6 weeks, and had required surgery. His words were, "They said when they operated on me that I was lucky I hadn't severed any nerves or tendons. I just battered and bruised them. No words can explain what I felt. Waking up with a breathing tube for a game of darts. I was stupid and I have to deal with that." The PDC referred the matter to the DRA, and no formal fine or ban was publicly confirmed in available reporting. The punishment Menzies already gave himself, 6 weeks off the board and a general anaesthetic, cost considerably more than any fine the DRA could have issued. And in a darkly comic footnote, Fallon Sherrock, his former partner and a player at the same tournament, walked past the same drinks table after losing her own match and gently wobbled it, drawing a long laugh from the crowd.
Right, well, do we have a royal upset on our hands here at the Palace? Because Gerwyn Price is 2 sets down and he has come out after the break wearing those. Now, he had done an interview in the lead up to his match with Raymond van Barneveld saying he'd been practicing with earplugs. And these aren't quite earplugs, are they? Have the crowd been getting to him? And it looks like he is going to play the 5th set wearing those.
January 1st, 2023, Alexandra Palace, and Gerwyn Price was world #1. the reigning world champion, 3-1 down in his quarter-final against Gabriel Clemens, and carrying 5 years of crowd hostility that traced back directly to the 2018 Grand Slam. When the players returned to the stage after the interval, Price was wearing large, industrial-style ear defenders, the kind used on construction sites, and became the first player in history to take the Alexandra Palace stage wearing them. The PDC had given advance permission and informed Clemens beforehand. Price had tried standard earplugs at home over Christmas, he explained, but could still hear too much through them, and with the full ear defenders on, he could not hear his own children anymore, which told him they would work. They made everything worse by a significant margin. Confronted with a world champion in ear defenders who was now also making taunting gestures toward them, the crowd at Alexandra Palace booed louder than they had all night, which is saying something on New Year's Day at Ali Pali. Price opened the 5th set with a 180, then lost the set 3-1, switched to smaller earplugs, and lost the 6th set 3-0, meaning he lost the match 5-1 to Gabriel Clemens, who became the first German to reach a World Championship semi-final. John Part, the 3-time world champion, observed afterward, "If you're going to take the step of wearing ear defenders, it's probably in your best interest not to taunt the crowd about it. Any genuine sympathy I had went out the window." Wayne Mardle warned that every future Ali Pali appearance would now bring a crowd determined to boo loudly enough to make Price reach for them again. Price posted on Instagram that he was not sure he would ever play in the event again. He did come back the following year, and the PDC amended its rules and banned ear defenders and headphones from all future events, which means that for all the things the ear defenders failed to do on January 1st, 2023, they did at least produce a permanent rule change. Price, reflecting on it later, said, "Did it block out the crowd? No. If anything, it was 10 times worse. But I was just trying to prove a point. The crowd heard every word of it. 10 players, 10 moments when professional composure gave way under pressure and took the consequences that followed. An 18-year-old shouting at the people who paid his prize money and then going on to win the tournament. A world champion punching a table hard enough to need surgery and a breathing tube 6 weeks later. A former world #1 putting his fist through a dartboard and losing £2,000 for the privilege. A reigning world champion spending £160 on the most counterproductive ear protection in sporting history. The Darts Regulation Authority exists because these moments happen on live television in front of thousands of people and are remembered long after the scorelines are forgotten. A 2023 study, published in Scientific Reports, analysing 26,724 individual performances, confirmed what every professional darts player already understands from experience. Crowd hostility genuinely affects throwing accuracy. The booing is not neutral atmosphere, it gets inside people, and the Alexandra Palace crowds of 3,500 fans per session, many of them in fancy dress and several hours into the evening, represent one of the most hostile sporting environments anywhere in professional sport. What connects all 10 of these moments is not a lack of talent or professionalism. Most of these players went on to win titles and continue long careers. What connects them is a single point where the weight of competition exceeded what composure could hold, and everything underneath came out at once. Some of them paid in money, some in reputation, and Cameron Menzies paid in nerve damage and surgery. Darts has always been emotional. That is a large part of why people watch it.